Amalek is living in the land. The Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites are living in the hill country. And the Canaanites are living by the sea and by the side of the Jordan. Right there in verse 28 and 29, what we have, you guys, is one of the reasons most people quit before they get the promise. And because you tune in, and I pray that you tune in for the rest of the week and like and share this so somebody else can get this word. This is going to bless us. Listen, God is saying and showing us through this episode in the life of Israel. And Paul's words come to mind now in Corinthians where he says, these things happen to them as examples to us, which means we will not only be able to relate to their problem, but thanks be to God, right now in this part of history in which we live, we can learn from their mistakes. Here's the first reason why they gave up and most people do before they promise. You ready for it? Because they cannot understand why what God said does not line up with what they see. Most people quit before they receive the promise. Because in their mind, they cannot logically reason. I know what you said, but I know what I see. You said you were giving us the land, but all we see are giants and other nations who don't love you now, who don't worship you, who really, ain't into this monotheism, this God that you can't see. Them people don't know you like that. So you're saying you're going to give us something. You're telling us victory, but all we see is fight. You're telling us it's ours, but all we see that it's theirs. And a lot of time people quit, throw in the towel, because what they say, what God said, doesn't line up to what they see. Now, listen to me good. The danger in quitting is that God can't give you what he got for you if you quit. God can't use you the way he desires to if you quit. He can use you if you mess up, but he can't use you if you give up. These people missed out on the best that God was offering them at that time. Because he's always offering us best. And his best in this season or in the next season is much better than his best in this season. And it ain't because he's short. It's because you can only handle so much best at one time. Come on, don't get me shouting too early now. These people were missed out on receiving the promise of God because they were looking at something that was in total opposition to what God said. Are you there tonight? Is that where you're living at? Come on, let's be honest. We family, just me and you. Let's be honest. Is that really where you're living? Are you living between, I know what you said, that you would heal me. And I know you said it, and I'm not denying going to the doctors. I've been going to the doctors. I'm not speaking against medicine. I've been taking the medicine because I know you can heal me through the medicine. And I'm doing that. And I remember praying and asking. And I remember through your spirit, you told me you would. And I heard a sermon and somebody came by and confirmed that it was you who told me that. So I'm sure I heard you right. But the dilemma seems to keep getting worse. And my faith, your faith is weak because what he said ain't lining up with what you see. Are you living there? Are you living there, brother? You heard that you need to start doing right with your money. You heard that you needed to start making an investment, and you even went on little apps that you can invest small amounts in, and it doesn't seem like anything you do to better yourself financially works, and you're doing what you've been taught to do that's been wise, and you give God what belongs to him. You ain't stingy, you're loving. In fact, about it, you'll give people the shirt off your back, but yet it seems as though the more you give, the less you have. And you're doing what he said, but it ain't lining up with what you see. Parent, are you there? Where you've raised your child with good manners and common sense. And now they're living as if they had no home training at all. And you know what God said, train up a child in the way that he should go. And when he's old, he won't depart from it. That's what he said, but that ain't what you see. And the temptation, when that happens, because it will, is to quit. Then the other reason why people give up. Now you say, well, Bishop, you just gonna tell me the problem? You got to stay with me, roll with me now. The first reason why people get up is because what God said doesn't line up with what they see. And that's why he tells us to walk by faith. And we're gonna deal with that in the next message. But I want you to get that. I don't want you to feel as though there's something wrong with you. I don't want you to feel as though that God is surprised or God is shocked at your waveriness or your wavering rather between what he said and what you see. You're not the first child that had that problem. But you tuned in and you're not going to quit. Here's the second one. The second one, which I have to admit, and excuse me, a moment of transparency. I think the second reason, when I look back at my life and see some opportunities that God meant to be, I just didn't believe could be. I'm going to say it again. There's some opportunities that I missed out in life that were meant to be. I just didn't believe they could be. You see, sometimes we miss out on things, not because God didn't want it to happen for us, but because we weren't ready for it to happen for us. And thanks be to God, his grace and mercy gives you another chance. Hey, but listen, the second reason here, the second reason I think is where I've fallen out. I fall at in a lot of things in my life. But thank God, again, he gives you new chances. Listen to it, and tell me if you've been here. Look at verse number 33. He says, there also we saw Nephilim, the sons of Anak, a part of the Nephilim. In other words, they reiterate what they said. Man, I told y'all them giants over there. And listen to what he says. And we became like grasshoppers in our own sight. So were we in their sight. A lot of times people quit before they get the promise because what God said doesn't line up with what they see. But sometimes people quit before the promise because how they see themselves. The text says, when they saw the giants, they said, we were like grasshoppers in our own sight. So I know how they saw us. I'm going to say it again. Here they are, 12 men who are smaller in stature than some of the men they see. Here, 12 men representing one nation, checking out a land that's got several nations, and none of those nations believe what they believe. And they said, we were like grasshoppers. I can't tell you how many times the hurdle that stood between me and God's best for me was how I thought about myself. I can't tell you how many times the ceiling I hit was the one I built in my own consciousness about my capacity. And I'm here telling you that because I know that there's somebody who feels as though you can't get what God has promised because you don't feel good enough about yourself. They were like grasshoppers. Not all the stuff they could have said, like grasshoppers. My brother, my sister, listen to me. Hear me good. You will never embrace God's best for you if you think you are undeserving of it. And the sad part about it is that if God wants to give you the best, it's an indication that his love thinks you deserves it. If God wants to give you his best, if God wants to open up the doors, if God wants to create the opportunities, if God wants to set the stage for you, it's because he thinks, he's convinced that you deserve it. But most people quit. Most people forfeit a better life because of how they see themselves. What's making you see yourself wrong? Is it your lack of knowledge? Is it your size, your physical physique? Is it your past mistakes? Is it some childhood trauma? Is it some unresolved relationship issues? What's keeping you from seizing the promise? What has you thinking about yourself the way you do? People quit before they get the promise. Most times. Because what God said don't line up with what they see. And sometimes it's how they see themselves. Now, question comes, is Bishop, how do I not become like that? Or for some, it may be, Bishop, how do I get out of that? How to prevent it and how to get delivered from it? If you come back tomorrow, I promise you, I'll give you the answer. Thank you for joining me. Share the video if it's blessed you. If you felt what I was saying, share it. 300 people over the next 3 days going to get the power to make a decision that's going to change the rest of their life. Until next time, remember, you're alive, you're important, and by God's grace, you're changing.
I never saw this coming. Too many times I run. I never saw this sign till you moved the veil to the side. All praise to the Most Higher. Took my sins with your hands tied up. Love me even when I'm fired up. And that's just crazy. The road that you paved me, the price that you paid me, and the life that you gave me. Say I never felt this love. Say I